Ladies and gents, we're getting really close to the release of Ghost of Tsushima, just a few more days up until then, but for today I'm really excited to bring you guys some brand new gameplay details and information that was made possible thanks to a brand new interview with the awesome folks over at Sucker Punch. I also want to give a big thanks to Winter's Werewolf over on Twitter because he was the person who hooked me up with the actual interview, as the GameStop website is kinda restricted for people outside of the United States. So anyway, exciting details ahead, let's jump right into it, and as always, a thumbs up on this video would definitely be super awesome. But before jumping in, I also want to give a huge shout out to Instant Gaming once more for being such a huge part of my channel. As you know, I've been organizing a ton of giveaways with them almost every month, but they also sell games at some of the cheapest prices you can find around. So if you also enjoy some really huge discounts, definitely go ahead and check out their websites by following the links in the description box down below. Nonetheless, the first question comes from Eric from Store4741, which I find to be a very good question, and that is, what action games inspired you when creating the combat for Ghost of Tsushima? To which the answer is, I'd say the two games with the biggest impact were Red Dead Redemption and Breath of the Wild. Red Dead Redemption did a fantastic job giving players the freedom to experience the life of a gunslinger in the Old West. We wanted to do the same thing with a samurai in feudal Japan. Breath of the Wild showed us the power of curiosity and discovery, something that we took to heart while designing all the hidden corners of Tsushima. And from the overall interview, what I've learned is the fact that it seems that there's quite a big emphasis on discovery, exploration, doing side content and side missions, and you're going to enjoy many of the stories in the game. Another one is for all of you completionists out there, and the question was, for everybody who is looking to 100% platinum the game, about how long is the game in approximate hours? That may be a broad question, but just as an estimation, with the beautiful world being as big as it is, would there be more of an abundance of exploration or more combat gameplay? To which the answer is, our game was designed for both people that want to take their time to adventure the island of Tsushima, as well as appeal to players that really just want to experience Jin's core story. So as you would imagine, playthrough numbers range wildly. In our playtests, many people would play through the game over 5 days and only 1 or 2 would finish the story at times, which is exactly what I want to hear from this game. And on top of that, it does seem that the island is packed with things to do. One of the questions was, how big is the island of Tsushima? Is the entire map ready to be explored from the beginning of the game, or is it unlocked as you progress in the story? And the answer is, the game is radically bigger than anything we've ever attempted and does feature a couple of areas that get to be unlocked as you play through the central narrative. But the real scale of Tsushima isn't the size of the island, but rather the number of stories and unexpected experiences you'll find there. It's a massive game brimming with secrets to discover and people to meet, and you will see that there's quite a few similarities to Witcher 3. I've mentioned this in the past, but the next paragraph kinda hints towards that as well. One of the questions was also in regards to the overall open world of Ghost of Tsushima and what were the biggest lessons that Sucker Punch has learned while developing that world, and the answer was, the biggest lesson learned is that not everything has to be packed with action every moment. So enjoy the countryside, look for secrets, get into a brawl maybe, ride a haiku and whatnot, enjoy playing as Jin adventuring around his home of Tsushima, which does sound really interesting. It does seem that Sucker Punch is really excited for players to follow their curiosity and get lost in the island, since it's a very beautiful place filled with stories and secrets to discover. But I'm sure that many of you already raised this question, and that is, what types of Easter eggs and secrets can you even discover in Ghost of Tsushima, since we are on the subject of secrets, and especially so when it comes to their previous titles like Sly Cooper or the Infamous series. Are there going to be any Easter eggs, and how will you come across them when you play the game? One of the associates asks. And as you would expect, yes, you are going to find these types of Easter eggs in the game. If you know what to look for, there are a few Sly Cooper and Infamous Easter eggs hidden in the game, and I cannot wait to see how these look like because it does sound really interesting. Now this ties in with another very important question that I want to follow up with, and that is this game going to actually contain a new Game Plus feature, especially since the gameplay looks really fun, and once you have completed the main story, you might want to just restart the entire campaign but keep some of the stuff that you have already obtained in your previous playthrough. Unfortunately, at least at the current time, it seems that there is no new Game Plus feature planned for Ghost of Tsushima, or at the very least it isn't going to ship with the game once it releases on the 17th. But, and this is a big but, this does doesn't mean that we aren't going to get it at all. There have been many games that have been released that didn't ship with a new Game Plus feature, but eventually it did get added. Some of these games, for example, you have already played, such as for example God of War 4 on the PlayStation 4, or for example Marvel's Spider-Man, that also comes to mind, but I'm pretty sure that we also had the most recent Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order that also didn't launch with a new Game Plus from the very beginning. So if there is a big request, and I'm sure that there is going to be one, Sucker Punch might very well add a new Game Plus feature, maybe later down the line with some different kind of patch or update. But let's go over some more gameplay details and other stuff related to combat and improving your character. One very good question was towards the end of the article that reads like this: to what degree does Ghost of Tsushima feature RPG elements such as XP, level systems, gear, skill trees, branching stories, dialogue trees, etc. To which the answer was, there are a number of skill trees in the game, giving players the freedom to create their ideal ghost. I personally like to invest in ranged combat, but you might be a straight up sword fighter, so I'm assuming you can invest points into that. Armor variations and weapon upgrades add another level of customization, ensuring that your character is very much your own. And we already know how this kinda looks. We had a few confirmed details of that, especially from the state of play that showcased the extent of the character customization, and there's going to be a ton of it in the game. But we also had another one of these videos that was posted on Twitter that kinda shows the extent of weapon upgrades. And speaking of weapon upgrades, I do want to talk about that in this video. So I know that we have multiple armor looks with stats to them. I was wondering, will there be multiple swords with stats tied to them as well, or will it be like other games where it's just one sword from the start of the game? And the answer is, Jin's core melee weapon is his katana, also known as the Sakai Storm. It's an important part of his heritage and the story, so we built our combat to be centralized around it. You can put various aesthetic options on it to make it your own, but it's also the same Sakai steel. However, there are various other weapons to augment your playstyle, such as for example the Tanto, various bows, kunai, and smoke bombs, to name a few. And of course, I've covered this already in yesterday's video. I definitely recommend you go ahead and check it out, since it contains all of the confirmed weapons that have ever been talked about and shown up until today. Now, on the combat side of things, we saw a lot of very easy targets in the state of play. Many of them were pretty much one-shotted, especially during assassinations. This raised the question, are all of the enemies one-shot killable from stealth, or are there like bosses and whatnot that can resist that? To which the answer was, you would be welcome to try, but some enemies are too strong to be killed in one single assassination attempt and will continue to fight back. If you're careful, most enemies can be taken down in stealth, but be sure not to alert their friends. And I think that we already saw this in the state of play, where we had this armored enemy that wasn't taken in just one single shot, but it took several of the high assassination attacks. But you know, I could be wrong, because this was just a critical strike and not an actual assassination, and I'm pretty sure that bosses can be one-shotted at anyway. Nonetheless, on the same combat side, it's been confirmed that yes, it's absolutely possible to attack enemies from horseback, but Jin is obviously going to be strongest while standing on his own 2 feet. And we also saw some footage of him being able to use the horse to give him a boost to jump and then committing an assassination right after that. So that's possibly a skill that you have to invest some points into. Furthermore, on the subject of double wielding, this isn't going to be necessarily the case with Ghost of Tsushima. So Jin was trained to fight with a single sword in a traditional samurai style, but when Mongols invade, he often finds himself radically outnumbered. To even the odds, he begins to use thrown weapons in the middle of the fight, mixing ranged and close quarters attacks with deadly results. So basically, you're going to use a weapon in your hand and you're going to have the other hand free to use something else, maybe like a smoke bomb or something to throw in the enemy. And we also saw him double wielding actually the Tanto as well as his katana when doing a chain assassination, but that's mostly because he's using both weapons to chain kill between enemies. Anyway, with this, I think that we have answered most of the questions that people still have. Of course, there are still more, but we have just a few more days until the embargo lifts, and then a few more after that until the game releases. So yeah, once the game comes out, expect a ton of gameplay coverage of Ghost of Tsushima. I'm going to post a ton of guides, tips and tricks, and other related videos to Ghost of Tsushima. So if you want to stay up to date with that, definitely make sure you hit that like button. Also subscribe and activate the notification bell, as that would be super helpful, and I will see you guys in a bit.